Major funding for these programs has been provided by grants from Capital One Bank and Perfect Building Maintenance, Murray Hill Properties, SJP Properties, Greenberg Traurig, New York Community Bank, Bank of America. Additional funding for these programs has been provided by grants from Akron Gold Brothers, LLC, C.B. Richard Ellis, City Investment Fund, Cushman & Wakefield, Eastern Consolidated, XL Realty Advisors, LP, Essex Capital Partners, First American Title Insurance Company of New York, Gemini Real Estate Advisors, GVA Williams, Hal Fettner, Durst Fettner Residential, Helmsley Spear, Herbert J. Sims and Company, Herrick Feinstein, LLP, Jackson Development Group, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Institute at Syracuse University, John Katsimatidis, Kilroy Metal Products, Marcus and Millichap, Massey Knackle Realty Services, M&T Bank, Madison Realty Capital, Meridian Capital Group, Newmark Knight Frank, Muss Development, Palin Enterprises, Rosenthal and Rosenthal, Signature Bank, Sheldrake Organization, Sterling and Sterling, Stephen Napolitano, Stonehenge Partners, Studley, the Moynihan Organization.
Hello, my name is Michael Stoll, host of the Stoller Report, Real Estate Trends in the Tri-State Region. You know, we're in a tough economy. As one of my guests said, this is the worst dislocation of the capital markets in his lifetime. So I have assembled a group of three prominent real estate individuals and one prominent New York City executive from the EDC to say what's happening in Lower Manhattan during this credit crisis and the world that we're in. My guests today include Larry Silverstein, president of Silverstein Properties, Ken Swig, president of Swig Equities, and Helmsley Spear and a couple of others, Francis Greenberger, chairman of Time Equities, and last but not least, Seth Pinsky, president of New York City Economic Development Corporation. You know, these guys have been on the show, so tell me, what do you see happening? You know, you recently, how many months ago were you made president of EDC?
About 7 or 8 months ago.
So what's happening? We're not talking Willard's Point, we're not talking Coney Island, we're talking about what's happening in Lower Manhattan today.
Well, what we're clearly seeing is dislocation in the market. The office tenants right now are standing on the sidelines waiting to see how the recent events are going to shake out. We're seeing something of a mismatch between expectations on the landlord and tenant side, both on the residential and commercial side. That being said, what we're not seeing so far is panic in the market. Development projects are continuing to move forward. Some of the timelines are slipping. Some of the costs are having to be adjusted. And we're certainly having to negotiate carefully with our counterparts on the projects that we're working on to ensure that the projects can continue to move forward. But what we're seeing generally is a wait-and-see attitude. I think everyone acknowledges that there are going to be difficulties in this market, that you can't go through events like we've been through over the past couple of months without having implications on a city like New York. But long-term, we and our development partners remain bullish on the city and Lower Manhattan in particular.
Francis, I mean, you've been in Lower Manhattan a number of years, not as much as Larry, about the same time that Larry has been there. And, you know, we were talking when you were able to buy buildings at $5 a foot in the early 90s. Ken started a little too late, but he wasn't too far. And now you have a planned hotel with a hotel and condo tower. You have the conversion where you're doing the office condominiums and some other things. What do you see happening in Lower Manhattan today?
Well, I think clearly there is some wait and see going on. Seth's observations are certainly true. On the other hand, and I'm not one who likes to blow smoke or overly optimistic, but there's still a pace of business going on throughout the city. We don't have any, as an example, on Maiden Lane this year, I don't know, we're completely sold out at this point, probably sold 150,000 feet of space.
Of office condominiums.
This year. And the last closing was maybe a month ago. We don't have any product currently on the market residentially downtown, but we have a variety of product around other parts of Manhattan. And I can tell you in the last week, we sold a variety of apartments, probably $5 or $10 million worth, which is a significant...
which is a very positive sign, which I'm a little surprised because of
we sold a loft on West 22nd Street for $3 million. We sold an apartment in the East Village. This is all the last week. An apartment in the East Village for $1.3 million. Two apartments on the Upper West Side, 93rd Street, one for $1.2 million, one for $700,000. So
people are still in business.
People are still in business. Clearly, everybody has the same thing on their minds. We're all concerned about what's going on. Obviously, our customers are too. But we are not shut down in the way that perhaps some of the banking industry is.
The banking is shut down. Yeah. There is no question. But Ken, how much square footage of office space do you have?
I will tell you, I closed a loan yesterday. Closed a loan
from a commercial bank.
From a commercial bank in New York.
How much space do you have? Office space do you have downtown now? 3.5?
About 4 million feet.
4 million square feet. And how do you see the office market today? Is there some vibrancy?
We signed 2 leases last week, which was nice. We don't have that much space available right now. And I think that's frankly symptomatic of the entire city, and particularly downtown. The vacancy rate happens to be lower than Midtown right now. So if we were in a booming market right now, and certainly we're not, but if we were, you'd see probably 30–40% reduction of the amount of leased office space this year versus last year, simply because last year broke all kinds of records. And we went from about 11.5% plus or minus to about 7.5% vacancy rate. To do that and duplicate it again would be a statistical impossibility because you'd have to be down to about 2%, which is impossible. So the natural pace of leasing was going to be decreased this year, even in a good market. But there are still tenants out in the marketplace, and they're still leasing. But everybody certainly is more cautious.
Okay, and what about,
people are
you're doing the conversion at 25 Broad. What's happening there?
Well, that I think is a more unique position because I think that is not necessarily reflective of the marketplace. It happens to be that Lehman Brothers is or was my lender. So that particular project has unique circumstances in that we don't know who the lender or the piece of the debt right now is in a bankruptcy court. But what you're seeing in activity-wise, at least, prior to, let's say, 9/14, when Lehman announced that they would go in bankruptcy, there was, a good amount of activity down there. We were on a very good pace.
And I'd like anyone to chime in, but I'll make sure that Larry talks. What's happening with retail downtown? Some of the articles, which I didn't write, were saying that with the terrible economy today, like Hermes might not stay there. But Hermes is still there, Tiffany's is still there, BMW is still there. Downtown is great new tenants.
Well, I think, first of all, if you're looking at a compressed period of time, and you look at last July and you're going to go forward for the next year, so a 20-month period, let's say, it's not a booming opportunity to go buy lots of retail. But these tenants came downtown for many, many reasons. One is that it's the wealthiest neighborhood in America on a per capita income basis per zip code. Okay? By day, it's number 1. It's number 2 now, but by night. Mountain View, California happens to be second. So they came down to one of the wealthiest areas in America to do their business, and they didn't sign 2-year leases. They signed multi-year leases, 10, 15-year leases. So I don't think they're leaving downtown as anybody else would be leaving Midtown. I think the same economic problems are both Midtown and downtown. But what you're seeing retail-wise is there was a huge growth of new retail activity that was never there really before. From Hermes to Tiffany to Canali to Thomas Pink to Maison de Chocolat to BMW. It's become the new Madison Avenue.
And I think it's also important to remember why these retailers are located in Lower Manhattan. It's not just for the office tenant, as you were saying. And even on the office side, you're talking about